Welcome to On the Fly, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast, where our mission is to teach the financial literacy skills we should have learned in school. We cover financial basics, investing, business ownership, real estate, and everything in between on the fly. Today, my name is Sean Lacey, and I am joined by Olayinka Famadou, Zach Owen, and our special guest of the day, the Forrest Lang. And I'll be honest, Forrest is probably the person that I have known the longest in my entire life outside of my immediate family members. Like, if I look through, family photo albums and stuff, Forrest is like the first person I was hanging out with when I was like 6 months to a year old. And I mean, shoot, Forrest and I have been through a whole hell of a lot, and we've known each other for a very long time. And it's also been really cool to see how we've grown during our time in college and then after college now as we're getting into the real world type of stuff. But before we dive into all of that, guys, how are we doing today?
Doing well. Yep, fantastic.
Awesome. So yeah, we got an action-packed episode ready today. And kind of as I was thinking about this, 10 minutes ago, trying to figure out what we're going to talk about, I think Forrest has some unique experiences that he can bring to the table, and he's kind of gone about things in the unconventional route. So Forrest, if you want to, give us a little background about yourself, maybe in the past few years, and then what you're up to now.
Yeah, for sure. So, like Sean said, he and I grew up together, went to high school together and everything. From there, I went to Ohio State, which I'm currently attending still, but I graduated in spring of 2020. So the first COVID class with my bachelor's in ag systems management. And then I decided to stick around and get my master's, which I'm currently working on in ag education. While working on my master's, I decided to open up an axe throwing business in my hometown of Worcester. So have that going for me. And then also got married last year, and my wife is starting a market garden business. So we're definitely business driven people and trying to get ahead so that way we can enjoy time with our family once that comes and we get to that point in our lives.
Absolutely. Beautiful, Forrest. So the first question I want to ask, jump right into this. What drove both you and your wife to start businesses? Like, what was your inspiration for that?
Yeah, for sure. So my family, looking back, my mom's generation and my grandparents' generation own a lot of businesses, have always been more self-employed side of things. And I just wanted to continue on that track. That was always a goal of mine growing up. I didn't know it would be axe throwing per se, but I just wanted to get into a business somehow and kind of take charge and add value to my community. And that's kind of what my wife Morgan does too. She wants to add value to the community through what she grows and what she sells produce wise. So.
That's awesome. It sounds like you took a passion of yours and ended up being a venture.
Yeah, for sure. So that was actually the name of my LLC is Lang, my last name, Business Ventures. So not necessarily like focused on one thing or another, but just kind of looking to add value through different ventures in our community.
Yeah. Very cool.
Great. I love that.
So, Forrest, maybe I missed it, but could you elaborate a little bit on, I guess, when you got into this? Was it right after high school? Did you go to high school, then college, and then decide, to hell with a degree, this is what I'm into? How'd you go with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of wish I said to hell with a degree as I'm working on my master's degree. I'm working through year 19 of school.
Wow. Okay.
19 years straight of school. So yeah, it's a fun time. Don't recommend it if you don't need it, kids. But basically, like I said, grew up around businesses and people that ran businesses. Most of my family, I've seen businesses come and go. My uncle had started a couple and then sold them as he was moving around the country and everything. So getting to see that experience firsthand just kind of drove me towards it. And then while I was on an internship in Georgia during my junior year of college, or in between my junior and senior years, so I was kind of thinking of starting my own business at that time. I had like a little video blog that I was doing that has since been gone. I just ended up not going that route, but was trying to come up with something to add value. And I got stuck on this idea of axe throwing. I was like, there wasn't a lot to do in Worcester growing up. Sean can attest to that. And I wanted to just bring something different to the area. I had gone axe throwing the summer before, and it was a lot of fun. I was like, I have a lot of free time. We'll just start crunching numbers. I mean, it's 2x4s and axes. It can't be that hard to do. Realized the business model could be made out of it, and you could make money off of it. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And I was all ready to go after I would graduate in spring of 2020. I was going to find a place, open it up and everything, and go all in on it. Then COVID happened and the world shut down. So I was like, all right, now's not the time to get into the customer service industry. So decided to stick around for grad school, like I said. And then after staying in Columbus another year, and crunching the numbers again, I decided to go full force into it during my second year of grad school. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Forrest. And one thing too, before we keep moving on, I wanna plug Forrest Axe Throwing business on Instagram. It's called Bullseye's Axe Throwing. They got a very cool logo, very great content. Forrest and his team do a phenomenal job keeping it interesting and doing promotions and activities that draw a variety of different crowds. So it's not necessarily like he's just targeting high school kids, just targeting college kids. From corporate events to family events, birthday parties, they really check all the boxes, and it's a great atmosphere on something that, he brought to a small town with not a lot of things to do. So it's been amazing to watch Bullseyes grow from starting it during the middle of a pandemic, which brings me to my next question. Obviously, starting a business is risky, number one. But number two, starting said business in the middle of a pandemic when no one has any idea what's going to happen or what the economy is going to be like. How did you, justify that to yourself and, your family members around you that this was going to be successful and that it was a good idea?
Yeah, for sure. So I say my family comes from all these businesses. They've had businesses, started them, sold them, etc. When I first brought this idea to my mom and my grandparents, they're like, yeah, that's a horrible idea. That's just, no one's going to pay to come chop up your firewood. So I was kind of taken aback by that. So I recrunched the numbers and went about it again. I was like, no, I can make money. There's money to be made in this. And then the pandemic aside, really, like, that didn't bother me a whole lot. Like, obviously, people coming in didn't want to be around other people. I went to one that was operating during the pandemic down in Columbus, and that axe throwing venue had a lot of restrictions in place and everything with a bigger city. But back home in Worcester, the restrictions weren't as severe, I want to say, and there was more I could kind of manage with that. And I was really hoping to ride the wave of COVID, quote unquote, being over in the summer of 2021. Because when I got the rent, or when I finally got the lease to the building, it was in April of 2021. And then I began renovating it and everything between April and May, and got it open Memorial Day weekend of 2021, which is really when things started to open back up for the first time in over a year. And I was able to ride that wave pretty good throughout that summer. As things opened back up, people were getting back together with their families and looking for something to do. And even the company events that we had all the way through last Christmas, is that a lot of them were the first time these companies were meeting face to face or with other people from different locations for the first time in over a year. So it was a drawback to me. Like, there was a little bit of hesitation, just wondering, is this going to work? But I was actually able to time it up right. And the week before we opened is when Governor DeWine lifted the restrictions and everything. So I never had to worry about COVID from the operating of a business standpoint. So.
That's awesome. I love that. And I want to go a little bit earlier than that, right? So what were the years before the business? What kind of things did you do to set yourself up for success? Whether it was maybe increase your capital, decrease your debt, increase your credit score, network with people. What kind of things did you do to prepare yourself? Because you knew you wanted to do this. What kind of things did you do, let's say even during your college years, to prepare you for that venture?
Oh man, that is such a loaded question, but I'll try to keep it brief here. I don't know how long you guys usually go, but I feel like I could fill the rest of the podcast answering that question.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So around 2017, which was between my freshman year and sophomore year of college, I decided like, okay, I need to just track how much I'm spending and watch how much money I'm making. Kind of just understanding income, expenses, real basic stuff. So I loved Excel. I started my own spreadsheet at that point, and just everything I spent, every dollar I made, I just put it in as income or expenses. I began to categorize the expenses so I could see, okay, this month I spent a few $100s on truck parts. This month I spent $200 eating out, just so I know where the money's going. I wasn't really, I don't want to say that I was in the mindset of like focused on saving per se. I was just trying to understand where the money is coming in and where it's going out. So once I had that grasp, I expanded it a little bit more the following year. As I was making a little bit more money throughout college, I was working several jobs at a time, just trying to save up more money. That was really that year I focused more on saving money and trying to minimize expenses. To a degree, though, I mean, you can only minimize expenses so much as a 20-year-old college student, especially one that likes to have fun and hang out with friends. So trying to find that balance was really important. And I just made it my goal, okay, let's make more than we spend this year, right? Spend less than we make, however you want to look at it. And I was able to achieve that goal in 2018. In 2018 also, this kind of ties into your question, kind of takes a detour, but I'll come back. It was the first year I did an internship with my school in my program, and I moved to Galveston, Texas for the summer. And this was significant for two reasons. One, I never thought I would move away from my hometown. The reason I chose Ohio State, mainly for the degree program, but also that it wasn't far away. I could drive home in a day if I wanted to, actually in a couple hours. So I was very focused always growing up. Like, I love my family. I want to be close to them. Like, I'll go to school for 4 years, come back, move back home, done. It was my advisor in college who suggested, like, you need to take every opportunity you can to travel and get out and experience other parts of the country, other parts of the world. Do that as much as you can in college, because 9 times out of 10, someone's going to pay you to do it, and it's going to be minimal cost to you. And you might even get paid while you're doing it, which was in my case with my internships. So one quote from him was that your hometown's always going to be your hometown. Doesn't matter how long you're gone. Things will change there, but it's always going to stay there. It's not like it's going to disappear or anything. So you can always go back to it when you're ready. So once he convinced me to move out of state and I went down to Texas for the summer, I had a great time. I learned a whole hell of a lot. And from there, I kind of opened my mind up to like, okay, well, like maybe I want to move around the country or whatever. The internship that I completed was with a agricultural and food company called ADM, Archers Daniels Midland. And the first year we did the internship, it was phenomenal. They had a great leadership team. They were like teaching all the interns about the organization of their company, the higher up leadership. You got to meet with like the vice president of our department and everything like that. It was great time, a lot of networking going on, making some great connections. And I started thinking like, okay, you know what? I could see myself doing this job. It's a good company. I'm enjoying it and everything. I think this might be the way I want to go after college. Following year, I did an internship with them again down in Georgia. And at this point, I was ready to kind of join the company, but they were also going through what they called restructuring, which fancy term for we're getting rid of old people, bringing new people in. So that made me realize, and a lot of my peers as well, a lot of people that did the internships, this was their second internship as well, because we did one, moved to a different location the following summer, do a third if you're lucky, or you'd go get a job from there and just kind of move around the country working for this company or whatever. But it was complete 180 of what we had experienced the first year. There was still some leadership and networking events, but not nearly as many, and it was not as enjoyable the second year. I still learned a lot, kind of learned the other end of it, like what goes well with corporate and then what doesn't, and how things can kind of just get taken away for no good rhyme or reason. So after experiencing that, I realized, I probably don't want to go this corporate route or whatever. And at that time in the internship in 2019, I had an hour-long commute. So I'd go to work, come back, and I'd pretty much be ready for bed. So that's when I got to sitting down and crunching the numbers and everything on this business plan. Like, okay, well, like if we move back home and we're not going to work for this company now, what are my other options? So let's see if we can make a business out of it. And at that point, too, my personal finances, I was really focused in on saving money, trying to minimize costs every chance I can, and just kind of rolling through that mindset and kind of started shifting at that point. And then once COVID hit, it was more focused on, okay, let's really focus on saving money, A, because there's nothing to do, but B, so I can start my own business once COVID ends. So
that's awesome.
I think I hit on all the points in your question there, more or less.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Thank you.
So I think two big things that Forrest touched on there, and they're kind of two big things that we talk about at FLI a lot, is number one, and I think Zach had a really good Instagram reel and TikTok about this, talking about there's only two ways that you can, I guess, increase your finances. You either make more money or you spend less money. Like there's not really anything else you can do about that. And the budgeting part is something that's a financial basic that it doesn't take that much effort. You might have to do a little bit of research, learn a little bit, and understand your certain situation. But once you get that down, it's really simple. Yeah. And once you understand that, like Forrest said, it opens up kind of an understanding of your life and what you're doing, and then you can manage things, and then you can be proactive instead of reactive. And on the second note, he mentioned too about how he wanted to work for, you said ADM was the company. You're like, after your first internship, you're like, this is great, let's do this. But things change, and you can plan out life as much as you want. And I'm guilty of this all the time because I'm a hyper planner. But you're going to get curveballs. Life's going to change, and you're going to kind of have to figure out what you can do to make the best of it. And in Forrest's case, it turned into a business opportunity, and it turned into multiple business opportunities that are going to continue to roll forward and, maximize themselves, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. So I would say, now, Forrest, you talked about, axe throwing isn't the end all be all. What are some other ideas? And you don't have to go into very much detail, to give your ideas away to the world, but what are some of your other interests business wise?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess one key distinction here, and this was recently made more clear to me through reading a book by the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's kind of the second book. It goes more into the cash flow quadrants. And so for any of your listeners that don't know what those are, you have E, which is employment. So you're working for someone. You have S, which is self-employment. You have or you're working for yourself. You have I, which is investing, and then you have B, which is business, aka you have people working for you. So right now, and Sean can probably relate to this too with his detailing business, I'm kind of between the S and the B. I sometimes work for myself, but I also have people working for me. So overall, that is my goal with businesses, is to have people working for me and with me on teams, and kind of having the businesses run themselves almost. My favorite part about my business is interacting with customers, but I also have enough other things going on in my life that I can't be there all the time. So developing a good team around that to run those businesses for me is definitely a significant piece of the equation. So moving forward, I really want to, again, add value to my community. And long term, I would love to purchase a restaurant at some point, whether I just fix that up, flip it into a newer restaurant and sell it to someone else, as well as expand Bullseyes into multiple locations around the Northeast Ohio area potentially. But long term, I want to have a farm and kind of more of what my wife Morgan's doing, and raise produce, raise crops, raise livestock to sell back to our community, and just kind of build value that way. I grew up on a farm, very much a farm boy, but I'm also realizing that in order to get to that point, in today's markets and the way agricultural prices are, it takes a ton of capital to get into that. So really all these other businesses, while I seek to add value to my community with them, I also am just doing them in order to gain the capital so that way I can eventually get to that point where we have a piece of land that's our own and we can raise our family and build a farming business from there.
I love that, and I want to add two things. Number one, the book is Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki, for our listeners. Great book. Number two is we have a quote that money is simply the intermediary between the value you provide to the world and the opportunities that await you. And it seems like the opportunities that are awaiting you from the value you're providing to the world is the land that you are trying to purchase in the near future. So that's awesome. I love that you're saying that, and I just had to make that a point. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the other thing I want to touch on too, and Forrest, feel free to expand on this more, the value that you're bringing to your community, not only with your business, but really realistically your second job with the Chamber of Commerce, which basically puts you in front of all kinds of people in terms of networking. So do you want to go into that a little bit more in depth and how you got that opportunity and what you've done with the opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I was pushed to join was our Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce, which for anyone that doesn't know what a Chamber of Commerce is, it's basically a nonprofit organization that focuses on helping businesses in a community as well as promoting those businesses as also. So really, it's this business that focuses on helping other businesses grow and become valuable pieces of the community. So with that, I have been involved in a lot of their young professional events, which are for those between 21 and 40, so college students as well as recent college graduates, as well as those getting like on the right track in their career or whatever, those that are climbing corporate ladders and things like that. And then there's also business after hours, which are for business owners, business associates that have a key role in any of the businesses that the chamber helps represent. So becoming involved with them has significantly increased my networking within my community. I've got to meet a lot of great people, both around my age and those older through different companies. And a lot of those companies end up coming in to go act strong for their company events. So that's what I always try to do, is figure out how can I provide value to you while you're providing value to me. And like I said, touched on it earlier, we've been able to provide a lot of these companies the first in-person activity or like stress relief, team building event, whatever you want to call it, in over 2 years. So that has been a very rewarding process, just getting to network with people during this very special time as we get out of COVID. So that part of the chamber has been huge, and it also provides a lot of volunteering opportunities, which have been great because A, it gets my name out there, but B, it also helps me give back to the community, which has given so much to me and provided me with these opportunities. So most recently, Sean and I teamed up, Luxury Auto Detailing and Bullseye's Axe Throwing, for a grill off for the Christian's Children's Home of Ohio. So that was a very fun day. We got to cook like 400 some burgers, and then people voted on them or whatever. And even though we didn't win, we got third. We did beat all the restaurants. So that was, you know what that says about our restaurants. Just kidding. Our restaurants are great. But it was a great time. We loved it. And just being able to network with people and give back to the community, but then also see all these people who a year ago, I had no idea who they were. They came out and supported us for our businesses while supporting the community. So it comes full circle. These people I network with come to support me while also supporting the community, which they may or may not otherwise come to support. So
that's beautiful.
One of the biggest things that young people don't understand, and it took me a long time to understand this as well, is that when like building these relationships starting out, they're not going to be perfectly transactional in the aspect where you do one thing for someone, they do one thing of equal value to you. When you're starting out, you're going to have to give way more value than you receive. But if you can do that enough and do it well enough, then down the road, you're going to receive way more value than you give out. It's the same principle of investing in compound interest. You start small and it grows and it pays dividends in the long term.
definitely. And like to continue your parallel of investing with those, interpersonal relationships, you're going to invest a chunk of time or money or effort up front, just like investing. And while, I think a majority of the time it's going to pay off, but sometimes it won't. Some investments go down the drain. So it's good to have kind of a diversified portfolio in that aspect. The more people you can connect with, the more people you can establish relationships with and network, the better. Definitely. Cool. So, Forrest, another question I had for you, kind of a more personal question. A lot of times, when people jump into a corporate job right out of college or something, they're in a very small part of whatever huge process is going on at that company. For example, I'm an engineer, so I just have, a little tiny job of designing something, and there's a whole bunch of other things that go into it, right? So when you kind of start your own business, you go from just performing one little tiny part of that process to doing the entire thing by yourself, right? So has that process kind of shown you maybe a part of that you like more? There's a ton of kind of processes in running a business like that. There's marketing, finance, like personal relations. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that point up because this actually ties into another book that I'm reading right now, which has been plugged a ton on podcasts, and I finally got it. It's called E-Myth, and it's the E-Myth is the entrepreneurship myth that exists in America, and it goes into small businesses and why some of them fail. And like you're touching on, Zach, there's a technician, a manager, and entrepreneur. So those three people are kind of constantly at work in your brain. And like when you're doing one small task for something or someone, you're a technician. When you're managing or overseeing several people doing tasks, you're a manager. And then the entrepreneur is trying to find new things to do, new ventures, etc. So the transition for me was somewhat difficult because I was more of that technician side of things / manager side of things, going through college and different jobs I had, as well as the program I was learning. I was learning how to manage agricultural businesses. So I did take a lot of leadership classes, and I always really liked those ones because at the end of the day, it's how you treat people, and they'll treat your customers well. So really, that's the part that I've grown to like most about my business is getting a good team around me and focusing on training them well, teaching them the right things, and in turn, they treat the customers great and help my business grow because of how I treat them. So it's also the part that I hate most about the business is because whenever I have a team member who has to move on to a different job or is moving out of the area, I've had multiple college students, and this has been the case. It is bittersweet because I helped develop this person and now they're moving on. So I'm left with a hole in my business, but also I know they're going on, leaving better than when they started, hopefully, and going to go make an impact further down the road at their next job or whatever. So that's probably been my favorite and the worst part of it for me.
That's an excellent way to transition into, I would say, my next question that builds upon that, but also the way, and we talked about this in our board meeting the other day here at FLI, is that you have to look at like being a leader and being an operator and owner of a business from a very high level, because if you look at it at every minute detail, you're going to put way too much time into things that are not worth your time. And it's difficult if you started a business where you were the first employee and you did everything. You look at every task, you're like, that task is important because it needs to be done this exact way. And I do this all the time, and it's why my biggest, I guess, action item for 2022 is to learn how to delegate better. But in that terms, like delegating, it starts with understanding what your highest priority tasks are, or the 20% of tasks that drive 80% of your productivity or 80% of the business. And we really looked at this in depth earlier in the week, kind of trying to narrow it down to 3 things that each of us focus on the best. So with that, Forrest, what do you think are, and we can use bullseyes as an example, but what are your 3 biggest things that you need to do in the business to drive the rest of the business?
For sure. So I would say the biggest ones for us are advertising. So I need to be very good at marketing, because that's how people see us and come in to actually use our services. And then the next one, again, leadership, focusing on leading my team because they can't do their job if I don't do my job. So in order for people to come in, have a good time, I have to make sure my team is well trained, understands any promotions we're running, and just make sure there's a good communication between me and them at all times, even if I'm not there or I'm out of town for some reason. And the third one, I would say delegation, if that can be one, because much like you, Sean, when I first started out, I was very specific about the way I wanted things done and was always looking for ways to improvement. At no point did I think I knew the right answer. I just thought I knew what was best at the time, and that's what I always wanted my team to believe in and focus on doing. A lot of things have changed over the past year and month that we've been open. So with that, I always look to be open-minded and take in recommendations from my team members or customers and just figure out how I can constantly improve the system. That way delegation becomes easier and management of people and tasks become easier. Anything that I can do to, instead of making it 4 steps, if all of a sudden I can make it 3 steps instead, that's going to increase productivity and increase efficiency, which will help reduce costs in the long run and make the business operate smoother.
I think the best way to empower employees and kind of give them a sense of ownership and leadership in their own right is you can't take, your processes and make your processes 75 bullet points and say, you sit up out or you stand up out of chair. Second, you take 10 steps over to cash register. Third, you can't go through it like that because you don't want people to think like robots. You want to say, make your processes 3 steps. Like in my case, it's like, I don't want to tell my employees to open the driver's side door, scoot the seat back. I want to say vacuum the floor in the front of the car, vacuum the back of the car. Like even that might even be too minute or too detailed, but you almost want to allow them to understand the general sense of it and then figure it out on their own and kind of develop a process within the process that they determine works best. So it's the kind of the give and take of how you can put processes together and properly manage your employees, but also give them the freedom to figure it out on their own almost.
Yeah, definitely. And that's one of the big things I've been able to do with my business. I've been able to be there less than I am present, if that makes sense. So I'm there less time usually than I am present there actually at the business, because I do that. I delegate tasks to my team, and it's pretty routine what we do. But every now and then we'll have a big group come in or something will be a little bit different. And I'll just shoot them a text like, hey, just so you know, there's this group of 20 people coming in instead of our normal 4 people. Just so you're ready for it. Let me know if you need help. So again, open communication around that and letting them kind of work on it themselves. Again, builds that ownership mindset like you were talking about.
That's great. No, that's amazing. And I know that a part of there's some part of our listeners that are wanting to take, maybe they have an online business to a brick and mortar type business, or they just want to jump into an venture. So for those people who are listening, what are some tips and tricks, maybe things that you regret, things that you really want to hit on for those listeners who want to take their business to the next level?
Yeah, for sure. So using the online example that you have there. So I actually have some friends that have clothing, like they make t-shirts and things like that, sell them online. So if they were going to be going to a brick and mortar store, and again, applicable to any type of business within some flexibility of these rules here, but really make sure you find a good place to rent and you know what you're getting, read your lease thoroughly, everything like that. Make sure you're in a good location. I can't stress how much location is important to a business. I was hoping to get downtown with my business initially, which For anyone that knows the Worcester area, and those of you that don't, the downtown area is a much younger vibe than the North End where I'm currently located at. It's a historical downtown, so lots of little shops and restaurants, but there's a lot of bars, a lot of nightlife, and a lot of events that go on down there. I'm located more of in a large shopping mall, like an exterior mall plaza type of thing. But I am 2 doors down from Buffalo Wild Wings. So you get those people coming in there to eat with their families or friends, watch sports. And then as they're leaving, or if they're waiting in line, they come down, throw some axes, and it works out pretty well. So location is key. Regardless of what type of business you have, figure out what the area around you has shop-wise, how much walk-through traffic you can expect to get, things like that. The second big key factor would be to make sure that if you're going to hire employees, you screen them pretty well, and that also you focus on really pay attention to them the first few weeks or few months, depending on the nature of your business. Focus on how well they perform, how well they listen to tasks, how much input they give back to you. If they're sitting there and you have to hold their hand the entire time, I hate to say it, they're going to be a hand holder the entire time. They will not improve. But if you have someone that shows initiative right off the bat, like you tell them like, hey, can you sweep this out? And they sweep and take the trash out. Like they go that one extra step all the time. Make sure you take time to point that out in them. Like they did a good job, and make sure they know that you recognize their hard work they're putting in, because reassurance like that goes a long way with employees. But kind of back to the other way, when someone's underperforming and you notice it, make sure you call it out when you see it, have that one-on-one conversation with them. And if things don't improve after that, I promise you it's cheaper to just fire them and pay the unemployment, whatever you have to pay, versus holding on to them from any damage it can do to your business through interactions with customers. Online reviews go a long way, and one bad review can honestly make a pretty big impact in your business. So that's the other side of that. And then finally, I would say just market it and network with as many people as possible. Anytime you have a business, not just when you're looking to transition it, but if you're really looking to grow your business, I guarantee you, even some of your close friends and family don't know that you're in that business. Even though it might be like on your Facebook page, you post about it all the time, you tell everybody about it. They probably still don't know, or there's someone that doesn't know. Continue to post about it, continue to network with people about it. Don't be ashamed, like, oh, I just work for myself, I sell t-shirts. Or like, no, I sell t-shirts. This is what I did. I sold 30 different designs last year. Here's what I'm hoping to do this year. Do you have any ideas for designs? Like, go out, talk to people, build your business. You have to be willing to talk about it and be confident in your ability to sell your product. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to grow if you always think you're the one holding yourself back. So those would probably be my 3 biggest tips. So
I love that. 100%. If I can even like summarize those, those are all great. Number 1 is like find your niche and like very much exploit that niche in the best way possible. Number 2 is hire the right people and make sure they have as much passion as your business, because it's your business. You're gonna have the most passion, but hire people who believe in the purpose. Let's say axe throwing, and they enjoy axe throwing themselves. Okay, I want to work for an axe throwing business. That's great. Number 3 is, no one is going to advocate for your business more than yourself. So make sure you are super prideful in advocating for your business. I love that. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that summarizes it perfectly.
And two big things too I want to touch on for the employee portion of it. And this is one piece of advice that Forrest gave me when I first started hiring employees, and that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And it's what he talked about, and that if you have any sort of doubt or you notice that they're not performing well, chances are you're not going to be able to fix them, and you should get rid of them as early as possible, because you trying to justify to yourself that you're going to fix them and then they screw something up, you're gonna be mad at yourself and you're gonna regret it more so than if you get rid of them, they turned out to be a good employee. And the second thing is, when you have a business, your business or company should have core values, and those core values should drive how you hire and fire people. And that doesn't even really need an explanation. Like, you should understand what your personal core values are and also your business, and they probably are pretty close to each other. And if the people you hire don't abide by those core values, chances are they're not going to be a good fit for the company long term. And you need to make that tough decision early on before it spirals out of control. So, and as we're kind of nearing the end here, I want to hit Forrest. I want to hit you with 3 more quick questions before we head out. So question number 1, what is your number 1 goal for the remainder of 2022?
Yeah, so my biggest goal that I have for this year is to get down to 200 pounds by my 25th birthday on November 2nd. So and kind of touching on this, I know you're trying to wrap it up, but last Christmas and New Year's, I hopped on the scale. I weighed 244, most I've ever weighed in my life. And I was like, okay, this is from stress from the business, eating around the holidays, and not working out. I was doing really good at working out until I started the business, because then all my energy and focus went into that. So trying to get myself into a healthy state, drop some weight and everything. And I'm definitely on a good track to get to that goal. So that's definitely my biggest goal for this year.
I love it. Excellent. And I have full faith and confidence that you're going to crush it. Now, question number 2, what is the book that you would recommend for our listeners to read immediately, whether it's your favorite book of all time or one that you're reading right now that just has made a massive impact on your life?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to answer with 2 books. I hope that's okay. First book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If anyone is thinking of just trying to get their finances or wants to just open their mindset to thinking instead of I can't afford this, instead of how do I afford this, and trying to switch your mindset, I definitely recommend that book. And then for anyone out there that has a business, I highly recommend the E-Myth. I'm only 4 chapters in so far, but I can already tell it's going to be a quick read and it's going to be a very impactful read. There's a lot of information and examples in there. It's a very good read, so I definitely recommend those 2 books depending kind of where you are as a listener.
You heard it here first. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and the E-Myth. Go buy them immediately. And then our third question, Forrest, where can everybody find you, and what's the best way to get in contact with you if they have any questions or want to talk business strategy?
Yeah, for sure. So I do have a LinkedIn. It's, I believe, Forrest Lang. I should look here. I'm just going to look. I'm sorry, I don't have these memorized. I've been listening to your guys' podcast all week, and I should have realized these questions were going to be asked. But of course, when I asked Sean, hey, what do I need to do to prepare? Oh, you don't need anything. It's on the fly. I was like, I love that. But
Bingo.
also, so LinkedIn's just Forrest Lang. If you see a guy standing in front of a tractor in a graduation cap, that's me. Twitter also I'm pretty active on from a professional standpoint. It's just Forrest Lang 78. So Forrest is with 2 R's. So if you, again, can't find me, make sure you're spelling that correctly. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook a lot too, but those are more for personal connections, not so much for professional connections and things like that. I use LinkedIn and Twitter the most.
Yep. And follow Bullseye's Axe Throwing on Instagram as well. So guys, do you guys have any other questions before we wrap it up here?
I do not, Forrest. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you, Forrest. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no, this has been great. And thank you guys for reaching out and having me on this. So I think you guys are on the right track with this podcast. Like I said, listening to them all week, this is definitely on the right track. You guys are going to make an impact with this. And I can't wait to see what guests you have on down the road.
Awesome.
Hey, we appreciate those kind words, Forrest, and thank you for an excellent episode. Honestly, this has been my favorite so far. Sorry to our previous guests, but I think we definitely covered a lot. We touched on a lot of helpful information, both for people that may not know exactly what you want to do with your life at this point, or even if you have a plan and that plan maybe gets a curveball. You know, there are ways that you can bob and weave and adapt and make things happen. And you know, I think Forrest's level of success at this point is a huge testament to his work ethic and his ability to make smart decisions when other people may not believe in those decisions. So even if the people close to you, you know, you may have an idea that you think is the greatest thing ever, and they may be telling you, no, you shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. If you have full faith and confidence in what you want to do, and you know that you will not give up until you make it happen, there's no reason that you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't let any small-minded person tell you not to. So, you know, thank you, Forrest, for everything. we can't wait to have you back here in a future episode and see how life has progressed, and see once you get that teaching position at OSU, see once Bullseyes has 4, 5, 6 locations, and the Lord knows what other business ventures we'll be into at that point. But yeah, thank you, Forrest. Thank you, Zach and Yinka. This has been a phenomenal episode, and I can't wait for the next one. So thank you for listening to On the Fly, a Financial Literacy Institute podcast. If you'd like to learn more, check out our website, www.thefli.net, and our Instagram at The Financial Literacy Institute. We look forward to you joining us on our next episode as we teach the financial literacy skills we should have learned in school. Thank you and have a great day.